Good afternoon, everybody. I've written this paper with Ashana Kassia, who is not here. Over the past decade, several sub-Saharan countries have developed or expanded export-oriented apparel sectors, in particular Madagascar and Mauritius. And these occurred on the basis of three regulatory regimes. First, the multi-fiber arrangement, which consists in quota restriction on large Asian producing countries, and which ended in 2005. Second, agreements securing preferential market access to developed countries, in particular the African Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. And third, national policies supporting the establishment of export-oriented firms, for example, export processing zones or incentives on investment. The objective of this study is to explore the dynamics of export market shifts and product upgrading experience by developing countries in the aftermath of the MFA phase-out and the rise in competition from China. This study is part of broader project research aiming at analyzing the African countries' firms' stabilization strategy in the context of Chinese ascendancy in the global clothing industry. The methodology employed for the study is based on data collected from the United Nations Commodity Database, the International Trade Center Database, and the U.S. International Trade Commission. And we used also primary data collected from face-to-face interviews held in late 2010 with top managers of clothing industry and clothing firms and key informant interviews. We used also published secondary data on the impact of the end of quotas. So we use the global value chain analysis to explore the factors which condition market access, geography, and diversification and product diversification in the global industry. A global value chain is the sequence of activities that firms carry out to bring a product from its conception to its end use, and includes activities such as design, production, processing, marketing, and distribution. The JVC approach explains how the structure and international linkages and dynamics play a crucial role for developing countries' firms' ability to enter these chains, and the conditions of participation and to improve them. Several empirical studies have shown that global sourcing and geography is shaped by 4 key dimensions. There is the structure, input, and output. So the sequences of activities that are carried out within the global chains. Third, second dimension, geography. Geographical analysis of JVC is based on the identification of the lead firms in each segment of value chain in order to identify their particular sourcing patterns and preferred suppliers. In the garment value chains, lead firms are Western firms, mainly from the US or the European Union, as large retailers like Walmart or Gap or Nike. Product segments and product characteristics shape clothing diversity geographical patterns. On one side, you have basic products characterized by a long run, high level of standardization, but low level of replenishment, and 2 changes or 2 seasons. For products like basic T-shirts or denim pants. On the other side, fancy products are time-dependent, short-run, and have 3 or more changes in the year, and a high level of replenishment. So, high level of replenishment favor producers which are in close proximity to the world's major markets. For example, Mexico and Caribbean countries for the US markets, and North African and East European countries for the EU market. This means that basic are sourced from low-wage, remote suppliers like Madagascar or China. Since the end of the quota, buyers are free to source apparel from in any amount and from anywhere in the world, and a tremendous flux in the global geography of apparel production have been threatened. Third dimension, GVC governance. The concept of governance is central to the GVC analysis and is determinant for market access and product diversification. Internal GVC is defined as the nature of relationship among the various actors involved in the chain. The captive or quasi-hierarchical structure is more characteristic of the clothing industry, which is buyer-driven. In a quasi-hierarchical GVC, you have power asymmetry, and lead firm exercise a high degree of control over other firms in the chain. They specify the characteristic of the product, the kind of operations, the processes to be followed, and control all of that. And GVC empirical analysis shows that governance structure characterizing the US and the EU distant clothing chains are quite different. For example, orders from the US market are generally larger and absorb 30 up to 100% of a firm's capacity. Whereas for the EU market, orders are smaller, from 10 to 15% of the capacity. So that firms have a higher number of clients in order to meet higher capacity fulfillment. In the GVC analysis, governance and product market diversification are analyzed through the concept of product upgrading. At the firm level, product upgrading is strategy intending to produce better product by shifting from basic to more complex products. And GVC literature concludes that insertion in quasi-hierarchical there is captive chain offers enhancing condition for product upgrading. As far as the external governance is concerned, it includes mandatory standards that producers must legally adhere to in order to access markets. The last dimension of GVC is the institutional framework. The institutional framework identifies how local, national, and international conditions and policies shape the globalization in each stage of the value chain. Insertion in the GVC depends significantly on these local factors and resources conditions. The availability of key inputs, labor costs and qualification, availability and quality of infrastructure, access to other resources such as finance, social and labor regulation, investment and business incentives, and environment. In the clothing GVCs, among the main agreements that shape this GVC, the former MFA, bilateral agreements like the UU preferential and the free trade agreements and the AGOA. There are also a complex framework of regional agreements. And it is largely agreed that the ex-MFA and its systems of import quotas were important for the geographical production structures and ownership pattern in the clothing GVC. Okay. So these agreements gave rise to quota hopping strategies, as several Asian firms which has exhausted their quota accessing the protected markets of the US moved into sub-Saharan African to capture additional quota access. Lastly, the existence of preferential trade agreements is crucial, as preferential tariff treatment can significantly affect market access for developing countries' producers. As this preferential access to market induces differential tariff levels, which become more important after the removal of quotas and in order to offset some of the losses that non-constrained countries have faced after the end of quotas. The Madagascar and Mauritian economies highly depend upon exportation, namely of apparel products. And in 1989, Madagascar set up EPZ law, and 10 years before that, Mauritian has set up EPZ law also. In terms of export market destination, the result that we obtained indicate that during the 2001 and 2011 time frame, both Madagascar and Mauritius have managed to increase market destination diversification. A common strategy in Madagascar and Mauritius was to increase sales into regional markets. Hence, South Africa has become an important market destination for both countries. On the negative side, Madagascar's disqualifying from AGOA in 2010 has hit sharply its export value, to the US market. And in 2001, the share of US market in the total apparel export value of Madagascar fell under 10%, after being at a peak of 61% in 2004. As a consequence, Madagascar is compensating this decline by increasing export value to its EU main markets. In terms of product structure, in the year 2011, the top three markets for Mauritius, the top three markets for Mauritius to the EU consisted of t-shirts and other vests and shorts and trousers, which are considered as basic products. And for the EU, in the year of 2001, top 10 products accounted for more than 86% of the total products exported. And it accounted for 75% of total products in 2011, which indicates, at least for the EU, there has been more diversification in the product type exported. For the US, the top three products consist of shirts and trousers and shorts, consisted of cotton, which are considered as basic products also. But there was a further consideration of the market structure, accounting from 70% in 2001 to 87% in 2011. As far as Madagascar is concerned, in terms of export structure, there is a high concentration as the U.S. destined products accounted for an average of 82% of all U.S. apparel imports in 2001, and it represented less than 72% of its total exports to the European markets in 2011. For both markets, the product structure remains more or less the same during the studied years. Products to the European market are also more higher value added, as cashmere and wool sweaters are considered as high-end products. As a conclusion, Mauritius and Madagascar had a common strategy that is to increase sales into regional markets in the aftermath of the MFA. This market diversification seems not to be explained by the MFA phase out, but by the access to the South African market. Thanks to the South African Development Community Agreement set up in 2006. We can confirm that the removal of quotas in the global clothing sectors has helped to consolidate the regionalization within the clothing industry. And this regionalization is favored by regional trade agreements and reflects the importance of proximity to end markets in the apparel industry. That is all. Thank you for your attention.
Actually, I'll start. Thank you very much. Very fascinating story. And if I go back, actually, I find that actually reading your paper and looking at your presentation from what Saskia Sassen talked to us yesterday is interesting. If we think about systemic edge again, and if we think about those two countries being on the systemic edge and at some point expelled of the systemic edge by not, at the end of the MFA and on those agreements, what you're telling us is actually a quite positive story of the type that she gave us a bit at the end, which is that this expulsion led to a reaction and led to the reconstitution of a social system, as she was saying, which is more regional, but in a sense would be, if I understand you correctly, more sustainable in the medium to long term. So I think we can certainly see that. I find this story as a very nice example of what she was saying in more general terms. So it's really, I guess it's not really a question, but more, what do you think?
Yeah, actually, as a policy recommendation, we recommended to negotiate preferential trade agreements with regional countries and even with Occidental countries, but regionalization is the best solution for the moment for suppliers and
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm not at all an economist, but I found the story quite fascinating, as Marie-Laure said, and continuing on that kind of perspective, thinking about the systemic edge and expulsion and a sort of way of strategically navigating outside of it or creating something new. I was wondering, in terms of social structures, communities, elites, etc. What has this meant, the later developments, the developments over the later years, in terms of social stratification in the two countries investigated? Have you seen any sort of major socio-economic developments in relation to these economic developments? That would be very interesting to hear.
Okay. As far as social development is concerned, I have to say that the Madagascar and Mauritian economy depend a lot on, in a very important way, on the clothing export, especially from Madagascar. It's something about 60% of the GDP, annual GDP. So. In simple terms, Malagasy people have no choice than accepting pretty dirty, dangerous, and demanding jobs. So that, I cannot say that there's no progress, there's no perspective in terms of economy, but the perspective is short term. Clothing suppliers depend on lead firms, which are nomad, they are just price takers, and there's a strategy of race to bottom price. So, maybe there's some evolution, but it's precarious.
I will follow up on Christina's question. And thinking that textile industries traditionally are dominated by women workers. So would I be right to think that women create 60% of Madagascar GDP? And if that is the case, how does it affect women's status in the society, and what do women do? That's probably not a very deep academic question. I'm just curious.
Historically, Madagascar is a matriarchal society. I cannot say that the human position in the society has evolved since the establishment of the EPZ and the creation of a job in textile industry. But for women, it's for Malagasy people, it's a kind of sub job for people who have no choice, no other choice. So women accept such kind of jobs, but the situation has not evolved much better, and it's such demanding jobs. For example, before expedition time, delivery time, you must know that firms will try to put the command the just-in-time system, later as possible. And when in the rush period, women have to stay up to 72 hours within the factories without going out. So it's many of them dismissed after such a period because their babies, their children have no one to take care of them.